chirp.
All right, everybody, how y'all doing today? Let me make some noise one more time. My name is Moishe. I am your host with the most. I am a concept artist and illustrator. My background is in advertising and comics and storyboarding. I've worked for advertising companies like 21 Grams, Biolumina, the Smiley Company, and I also teach at Otis College. Woo! Yeah. Where are my Otis folks at? Put your hands up. Where are the Art Center people at? Okay. And then, anybody else go to school? Like, what other school you guys go to? Okay. Should we have like a Otis versus like battle royale, like just fisticuffs? Okay. So this is actually how to rank up an Overwatch panel. We baited you guys actually. We're talking about how to get to Grandmasters. No. This is the unspoken skills of being a pro artist, and we are the Resolution Art team. Woo! Give it up for us. Yes. Okay. I'm here joined by my wonderful friends, and they all have a variety of backgrounds. Is anybody, what kind of backgrounds do you guys have in terms of art? Anybody into like animation? Anybody does commercial stuff? Okay. Anybody does like poster stuff? Illustration, editorial? Right. Okay, so I bring this up because we all come from a variety of backgrounds. And this is our opportunity to relate to you guys about what we've been through. Some of us have been in biz dev, some of us have been in concept art, some do freelance, some do our own little thing. So we can all provide some kind of information, and we just want to say that we understand and we relate to your struggles. We were not always like perfect. If anything, we're not perfect at all. We just kind of pretend we know what we're doing. Like, you know, we just get better at what we're doing. So the whole point of this is to relate to you guys and to give you guys skills, professional skills, so you guys can navigate yourself in the industry or as an independent artist. These are very important things to learn. So first, I want to do introductions, and after introductions, we are going to do questions, and then if we have time, we will do Q&A. So first, introductions. First up, Chelsea Blecha. She is a visual development artist and illustrator who specializes in color, light, and mood painting. She graduated with BFA in illustration from Cal State Long Beach. She worked with Taiko Studios, Warner Brothers, Animation, Disney, Disney Junior, Procreate, and Macmillan Publishing. She is currently working as a viz dev artist on Bad Guys 2 at DreamWorks Feature Animation. She is also the co-founder of the Resolution Art Studio. Give it up for Chelsea, everybody. Yes. Chelsea has a very strong talent to be able to convey emotions through color. Her eye for color is like no other, so appreciate that. Next up is Dylan Choonhachat. He is an illustrator and concept artist for advertising and games. He has worked on various projects in games, animation, and advertising for clients like Netflix, Sony, Marvel, Riot Games, Valve, Rockstar, Warner Brothers, HBO, and Disney. You know, it's small clients, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that big of a deal. He is also a figure drawing teacher and co-founder of the Resolution Art. Give it up for Dylan. Woo! I met Dylan back at SMC, and he was like the hardest working student I've ever met. And yeah, it's awesome that we reconnected. Hell yeah, for sure. Next up is Alan. He is a story artist who specializes in the craft of cinematic visuals. He has previously worked at Netflix, Bento Box, and Shadow Machine. He is currently the head of story of an unannounced series adaptation of a game. He has an undying love for the craft of storytelling and unquenchable need to pick heavy things up and put things down. You guys can tell, right? Yeah. Swole Patrol, yes, sir. Yes. And also, Alan has a very poetic way of explaining things. He's not literal, he's very poetic when it comes to explaining his ideas. And every time I hear you talk, it's like wisdom coming into my
He's
brain.
literally saying I use too many words.
No, dude, no, are you kidding? I'm like in awe, I'm like this.
Can I make a quick adjustment? I just got approval
The project that I was previously unannounced, I am the head of story on Sky the Two Embers. If I work with that game company, they produce the game. They produced Journey, which is probably one of the most popular. But their current game, Sky, Children of the Light, I have been working with them along with my team, my director, and everybody, just adapting it into a series. We are releasing season 1 next year and are currently on season 2.
Woo! God damn, Alan. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Next up, we got Alex Henderson, visual development artist who specializes in blue sky paintings and color keys. He has experience working in both animation and games for companies including DreamWorks TV, Riot Games, Nickelodeon, Titmouse, Rough Draft, and Spin Master. Give it up for Alex, everybody. Yes, Alex. Also, Alex has a talent to capture nostalgia. If you guys seen his paintings, he's able to capture the childhood nostalgia of like skating and being with your friends. We feel that, so we appreciate you, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is Gina, LA-based character designer who works primarily in animation and graphic novels. She worked for Warner Brothers, Marvel, Cartoon Network, and Titmouse. She's currently writing and illustrating her debut graphic novel to be published in 2026. Give it up for Gina. Yes. And last but not least, we have Ian Su, concept artist who works in the game industry. While he is primarily known for his character designs, he also has experience working in illustration, environment design, and background painting. He's worked for Phoenix Labs, West Studio, Titmouse, and The Mill in the past. He's currently working full-time at Riot Games. Give it up for Ian. Yes. He's like the ninja of our group. He's very silent, but his artwork is deadly, like just killer. So that is that. So first question I want to ask is a hot dog a taco or a sandwich?
Sandwich.
No, no, but for real, do you guys think taco? Is a taco or a hot dog? A hot
Sandwich.
What's that? Raise your hand if it's a taco. Raise your hand if it's a sandwich. Wow, you guys are diabolical, really? I think it's a taco, right?
But the question is...
The bread doesn't touch.
The bread doesn't touch?
The question is...
No, but you need 2 pieces of bread to make a sandwich, right?
No, but there's an
So it's a
open-faced
taco.
sandwich.
So it's a taco. You guys are crazy.
No, but
See,
who
this is why you
says-
guys are gonna get jobs, because you guys don't understand it. Yeah.
Wait, who says a taco isn't a sandwich?
What's that?
Who says a taco isn't a sandwich? It's
Did
still
you just
a carb.
bamboozle me?
It's still
Let's
carb.
move on.
You just bamboozled me. Okay, all
Move
right.
on.
So first topic of discussion is you guys, when you guys are working, you're constantly having to deliver no matter how you guys feel, right? So whether you guys are doing schoolwork, but especially if you're working in the industry or for a client, you always have to deliver consistently. They do not care about your feelings. They do not care what happened. They want you to deliver. So the topic is, how is it that you guys avoid burnout and being consistent? How do you sustain a healthy work balance and avoid burnout? I think you should just burn out and just die, but like that's just me,
That sounds healthy.
right? Very healthy. Yeah, what do you guys think? Burnout?
Who wants to go
I
first?
feel like
I'm burned out, Alan.
you're burned out right now.
I am as well.
We're actually
So
burning out
you guys
right now.
don't
You
have
go.
the answer to that question.
Yeah, maybe not us.
Well, personally, for me, I guess suppose that to avoid burnout, especially if your hobby is your work, I guess my answer is to take up different hobbies so that in your personal time you're not doing the same thing as you are in work, because eventually that hobby is only going to be associated with work, right? So pick up something that's completely unrelated. Say if your work is art, for your hobby, do something else. Maybe it could still be art related, like crochet, knitting, the punch rugs thing that I've been seeing people do. What is it called?
The what?
But the punch rug thing that people have been
But
doing.
it's like just something else that's
basically,
creative.
Yeah, something else
as
that
well.
could be creative. It doesn't even have to be creative. You could go outside and go skateboarding or just taking hikes, I would say keep it separate. And if you really do want to do personal art, I would say you'd have to keep it to a smaller time frame, because if you do too much of it, you're just going to end up hating what you do all the time.
I think, For me, I've definitely experienced burnout. To give you an example, there was one sequence I was storyboarding and I literally messed up my eyes, had to go see a doctor. Had to see a doctor about like some ocular issues just by burning myself out pushing. And the thing that I have really learned that's helped me a lot is to better understand your capacity and your limitations, because we are not expected to operate 100% of the time. So learn and understand your own capacities. So for example, using myself, in the mornings, I am the most creative, I am the most agile when it comes to problem solving, and so I'll structure my workflow to do that. In the beginning, I will make all my critical decisions, I'll do my thumbnails, I'll write down my beats, and make sure that by the time, 1, 2 p.m., my brain starts to get a little foggy, I'm definitely not as good at thinking critically. I've already built my notes. My previous version of myself in the morning has dictated how best I can be. So later in the second half of the day, I crack on music and I just execute the plan that I myself laid out in the beginning. So maybe you're the opposite. Maybe you're more creative at the end. Then maybe you can structure your workflow to that. Just embrace and lean in on your limitations and then gradually build up your capacity.
Oh, that's really good.
But my question is, how do you know what your limits are? Because especially for beginner people, I think we tend to, for me at least, I remember I had to really push myself to know what my limits are. Do you think that we should just
I mean, chances are if you've already experienced burnout, you kind of already have an idea what your limits are. And it's okay if it didn't take that much. We're still learning, and things are difficult when we're just learning it. As you build your experience, you'll stretch that muscle. It's very much like exercising, right, Moishe?
Yes, sir. That's right.
But yeah, it's something, and I highly encourage you take notes about yourself. As you improve as an artist, you are continually studying the art, but studying yourself. So the more you understand yourself, the better you'll be able to make decisions based on that.
It's a trial and error.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
you have to go through it.
Yeah. Just don't burn your eyes out like I did.
I think it's important to like Alan mentioned, your limitations and not going 100%. I always say you want to aim for 80% all the time, right? Because consistency is important for your employers or your clients. So if you're always pushing for 100 and you never make that 100, the product that you're delivering is inconsistent, right? And it might cost you a job if you're inconsistent that way. So just always aim for 80% all the time. And with the burnout issue, if you save yourself that 20%, you can always use it in your own work or anything that you feel is fulfilling to you. Because sometimes work is not fulfilling enough, right? There's crunch time. Art directors make you do things you don't want to do. But if you save that 20% for yourself, you can avoid overexpend, because burning out is you're expending too much energy or creativity on something, right? And if you're always expending 100% all the time, you don't leave yourself enough room for other things that may happen in life, bad situations, bad day, relationships, family, whatever it is. But if you save that 20%, you can always tap into that, right? And that way your work is not affected. So 80% all the time.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's actually interesting because I had a job one time, and it was one of my first jobs, and I busted something out really quick. I was asked to do an assignment, and I did it so quick, and I was yeah, I'm gonna really impress or just make this thing amazing and just try and prove myself or something, have some interesting motivations behind that, and then I turned it in, and my lead was you don't do that all the time, okay? Be careful about that. Be because if you do this, they're gonna keep expecting that from you, right? And it was really gracious of her and really cool for her to say that to me, because not every lead would do that, right? So I was very thankful that she, said that to me to, just help me not burn myself out. And she was yeah, you want to prioritize yourself, you want to prioritize your mental health and make sure you're okay, and just have room to breathe, right? Because I think especially when we start, we feel we have something to prove, or maybe if the they're cutting down the team, like we're the first ones to go, you know? So you want to like perform well. And there's like a kind of like, for me, there was like a need or a want to perform well. And yeah, so I think it's just, for me, I had to push those thoughts aside and just like just chill out, you know? And yeah.
Do you mind if I add to that?
Uh-huh.
So really quickly, I've been on the side of, I've been fortunate to have managed story teams, big and small. And one of the most difficult things that my job is, hey, we have an expectation. We have to try to accomplish an episode or two within a very tight deadline. Part of my way of planning for that is to understand my team, what each member is capable of and what their limitations are, and what I try to cater to their strengths. The problem is when someone isn't either transparent about their burnout or they're just not there to where they're managing it properly, and I'm not made aware of it because obviously we've all been there. You burned yourself out, but you're so scared to bring it up because you don't want to come across as weak or you're not as good as everybody else. I would hope that you have a good enough leader that you can confide in them and be transparent with what your actual capacity to produce work is, because that's information that they need to manage and hit deadlines. So I've had instances where I think that they're totally fine, they're sending me work at a consistent rate, and just when I needed them most, they're burnt out. And I have compassion for that. I make the space for them and I try to basically reorganize my expectation, but it does put pressure on me. So please study yourself, learn your limitations, be transparent, and be truthful about the work you actually can produce. Stick to the 80% rule, which is a great rule, and it's gonna allow the team to function so much better.
I also want to say for myself personally, I don't know if everyone else feels this, but like a lot of times when we're working on the job, or maybe it's like, you know, homework assignment, for example, there's a certain level of emotional attachment to the stuff that you do for work, something that's a little bit more, you know, on a professional setting, or, you know, you're doing for a class. I think it's really important to kind of segment, you know, your mindset when you're doing like personal work and then like professional work, or like compartmentalize these two different parts of your brain. Because a lot of times when you're working on something for a job, it's like really soul-crushingly boring stuff, right? So it's like if you put a lot of yourself into that with no return, you're gonna be like, what the hell, you know? And it's like, you wanna save that emotional investment for something that's a little bit more personal to you. So that's how I personally avoid burnout, because a lot of my burnout comes from like I said, investing into something emotionally that has zero return. So, you know, I save that part of myself for like, you know, stuff that I hold near and dear to myself. You know, don't give these corporations like everything.
The best stuff.
Yeah, piggybacking off of that is to not take it personally too. If like say for a design gets rejected, right?
Yeah, because then if you get like critique, then it's like, oh, this is just my job. This isn't like who I am as a person.
It's not you personally. It's just that the client wants a product and you have to adhere to what they want. You know, it's not about you. It's about them. So save all of that for your personal stuff. Don't be attached to the work that doesn't really belong to you.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like the stuff that we do on the job, it's a desk job. You're doing a white collar job. The difference is instead of poring over, you know, Excel spreadsheets, you're drawing pictures, which is great, but it's like it's still a job with deadlines and stresses at the end of the day. And I feel like, especially like me as a student, when I was a student, I was thinking this job was like, you know, a lot more magical, a lot more, you know, rainbow and glitter than it actually is. But it's a job at the end of the day. You know, it's a job that you invested your skill set into, and it's like, you don't want to, you know, again, don't give these corporations more than you have to.
I feel like that's something that's like today we're gonna, or like Lightbox in general, or the art community, everybody's always like saying how amazing the job and everything, and it pushes that narrative that it's like, it's supposed to be fun all the time. But the reality is it's not.
It's
right?
still a job.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think on that note, I think it's really important to not show everything you do, like all your personal work and stuff. I mean, with social media being so big and we want to advertise ourselves so much, yeah, it's pressure to, you know, show our best work all the time. And it's very easy to get burnt out when you're showing everything on social media and you try to gain followers, and it's just mentally it's going to burn you out very quickly.
Yo, and then your art director's like, yo, why don't you do more of this? And he points to your fucking Instagram page.
I love
And you're like,
that.
so I spent more than a day on that?
I also want to say something for like independent people too, if for like people who aren't working for a corporation or a studio. If you're working on your own project, the best way to avoid burnout also is to set realistic deadlines for yourself so that you're not just pushing everything aside and then cramming it all in the last minute. Just say like, instead of saying, oh, I have to do, for example, my graphic novel is 250 pages. Instead of saying, oh my God, I have 250 pages, I could just say, over the course of like this many months, I can do maybe 2 pages a day. That's a lot more realistic than trying to think about doing it in one bundle, you know? And then that way it leaves you room for like, if you don't want to work a day, if you don't feel like it, you can just make it up for another day. Like, oh, instead, if I don't want to work this day, I'll just do like another page another day. I'll just add it that way. Make realistic goals, just one step at a time.
Gina, do you find that being an independent artist, you have to be more disciplined because you don't have a boss telling you what to do? You kind of have to be your own boss. Like,
in a way, yeah, because you're setting your own deadlines and your own goals, and you're responsible for all of it if it doesn't go through, right? So it does have, you have a lot more self-responsibility in that regard. But it also is freeing in the sense that you can work when you want to at your own pace, as long as you make your deadlines.
yeah. And being independent is also, it's really hard because you have to set your own goals. And a lot of people aren't consistent with that, so it's very important that you guys stay disciplined and try not to burn yourself. It's so easy to get inspired and be like, I'm just gonna work 30 hours, like 24 hours every day, but you don't want to do that.
Yeah, and then there are people who like set goals for themselves and they just, you know, if it's not a hard deadline, they kind of always push it back and then it never gets done.
Yeah.
So have some accountability for yourself.
Cool. Next question. How do you truly initiate as a tank in Overwatch 2? All right, so being a problem solver. So in any field that you're in, maybe it's not even art, maybe it's just any job, you're constantly having to problem solve the things that you're doing. Even if you're working like, I don't know, like a retail job, you're problem solving social skills, you're problem solving, you're managing your manager's emotions, but in art, you're constantly having to problem solve ideas. So how do you actually get better at problem solving? What does that entail exactly?
I think we have to know what problem we're solving first, right? Because a lot of times, like, people get a job, they don't know what they're doing, and they're just kind of doing what they're told to do. And I feel like I always, for me at least, like what the main job that I do is I sketch concept for movie posters, right? They only need me to sketch stuff. But to have an idea of like, okay, this is gonna turn into a poster at the end where they use photos and all this stuff, it gives me expectations of like what's more effective, because I don't wanna spend too much time, you know, like for maybe sometimes you're doing like a small prop and you're spending too much time rendering it. And that's not needed in the pipeline, right? Like maybe they just need a quick thing. And I think it's good to know the expectation of like get a bigger picture of everything. That way you can make better decision about how much effort you want to put into certain problems. So like understanding more than what your job entails, I think helps a lot.
Pipeline, like knowing the
Yeah.
pipeline of what you're doing. Yeah, how much screen time something is going to get, if it's a hero prop versus just a prop that's not being interacted with. Yeah, it's really important to understand why you're doing what you're doing. And it's common to not understand that when you first start the job because, I mean, you're new and you're still learning, but asking questions is so important. And it's very welcomed too. When I first started in animation, I would ask my prod people, you know, what does this mean? What does that mean? And they're very happy to help. So not to be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, that's super real. I think that's definitely happened to me before where I've had an assignment or I've had a couple things that I needed to do and I kind of went too crazy with it. And they're like, we didn't need all of that. Like, this is just this is just a prop. Like, you could have called that out with like a photo, or you didn't have to paint it, or yeah, it looks great, but we didn't need all that, right? Like, that's definitely happened to me before in my first like couple jobs. So it's like, yeah, definitely knowing what the end result is going to be really helps. Like, really knowing that like what purpose you're serving on that production, and it changes per production, right? So just be curious and like, yeah, ask questions.
Dylan put it really bluntly and concisely. Knowing the problem is definitely the key. And speaking from a story position, you know, working with directors and me working with story artists, when you have your launch meeting, talk it out, try to problem solve it, brainstorm it together. So communicating and verbally pitching openly, it takes a lot of trust between you and your leadership position and your team members, but it's also a skill that you should be practicing. The more you can front load problems solved at the beginning, it just frees you up and simplifies the rest of your assignment. And you want to especially, I'll throw another specific example. If you're doing story and you receive a script and you read it through, and there's any logistical stuff, if there's any easy things that you're not sure of, bring it up in the launch meeting. Get those out of the way. You want to be able to just focus on the hard problems and make sure that the easy problems are not even in question.
I think a lot of times as artists, we always want sorry, I'm like so burnt out today. I was like tabling for like, I don't know, what time is it right now? Like 4 or 5?
It's midnight.
It's been a long day.
It's midnight, my brother.
What was I gonna say? I think a lot of the times as artists, we want everything that we do to be like pretty and pristine, and it's like, oh, this is something that will look nice when I post on Twitter or ArtStation. And the thing is, you know, especially as a concept artist working for video games, a lot of the important work that I do is just like scribbles. You know, it's stuff that I jam out in like a couple of minutes, and it's not even like I can't show this to anyone. If I post this on ArtStation, no one's gonna hire me. But the thing is, like, it's what's more important is the ideas I convey with those scribbles. Like, oh, I want this character to move like this, or I want this to open up when, you know, you push the button, right? And stuff like that can be conveyed a lot easier with, like, you know, like scratchy scribbles, as opposed to like, oh, I'm gonna like paint this out, and I'm gonna render it, I'm gonna spend a whole day on something that like really doesn't need all that time spent on it. So it's like, again, it's about, I'm kind of repeating what everyone else is saying, but it's about what the problem is, right?
If I can add to that, get really comfortable with sticky notes and Sharpies. You want to eliminate any incentive to be precious. And you want to be able to experiment and have that be its own stage in your workflow. And just like you mentioned, it doesn't have to be anything anybody sees except you. Yeah.
I guess I'll speak from specifically a character designer point of view. Is anyone in here a character designer? Yeah, you guys
Nice.
ever run into that problem where you make a really good 3/4 design, and then when you try to turn it, it just doesn't work? Yeah, so that's a big problem that we always have to solve, right? You have to make the design readable from all angles. So that means that you have to cut out a lot of design elements that you might have liked, but it just doesn't work in a turn. Or sometimes if you must include it, then you have to find a way to kind of cheat it in the turn. I don't want to say cheat it, but you know what I mean, right? Like, it doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as it reads well. I think the important thing is that readability of the character, and the fact that the design itself tells you about the character is the most important part. It's not so much how good it looks from one angle, because you're not just going to see the character from one angle. You're going to see them in motion from behind, you know, in all sorts of angles. So it has to work from all angles.
Hell yeah. Woo! Okay, all right. I'm just hyped. Okay.
You have too much energy for what time it is.
Yeah. This time's flying too. It's crazy. All right. Next question is Reinhardt? Okay, never mind. Okay. Big.
Keep it together, bro.
You guys don't understand, man. We just play.
It's coming out.
We play hella Overwatch, right?
Every night.
Being proactive. Okay. So when you guys are working, you guys aren't. You can't just meet the bare minimum, right? You kind of have to be proactive to be able to deliver something unique and different. So how is it that you can give examples? Hold on one sec. Okay, can you give examples of things you can do to be proactive and why they are beneficial? Bringing your unique ideas to the table. Yes, yeah. So bringing your own unique ideas to the table. How do you guys stay proactive during a project?
I was just going to say, have a designer's eye, basically just kind of have a lot of reference and just figure out how things work around you, and just always be looking. I'm always looking at how light is falling. I'm always looking at, the colors that are in front of me and just interesting designs, and that you can translate into your work process. And it really does make a huge difference, because that's what makes you an artist versus not.
Yeah, I feel the same, because going on the whole character designer thing, like, don't you ever just look at somebody and like their fashion sense is so on point, they look great, and you're just like, that's a great character design, right? Right? Like, you ever feel like, I always see people, especially at cons like this where there's so many creative people, I want to go home and like draw them right away, because I'm like, that's a great character design. So always, like, whatever your craft is, I guess always be practicing it in your everyday life, and then it becomes natural to you.
Yeah, because like seeing is just as important as like being able to paint. I think there's this conversation surrounding this idea of like talent in art, right? And some people think it exists, some people don't think it exists. I think talent is really just people paying attention before they even start drawing. Chelsea and Gina said, like, having an eye for things, right? Like, and I remember distinctly, I was talking to a friend about this new video game that we both played. I don't remember what it was, but what I noticed first was the characters in the game. I thought they were fantastic. I thought they had a lot of personality. And the first thing he noticed was the environments, how luscious it was, how lived in a lot of the environments felt. And lo and behold, 5 years later down the line, I'm doing character design as a living, and he's doing environment design, and it just comes down to being engrossed and like very emotionally invested in the world around us, whether it's real life or other forms of media.
For me, as a story artist, the very first job I ever had, and the very first director I ever had, he gave me some kind of profound advice that I haven't really heard very often, and I want to give it here. When you deliver your work, your goal is to hit 90 or plus % of what your director or your art director is looking for. You want to be able to execute almost as if they would have done it themselves. And the hard thing is, a lot of that depends on taste, having good taste. And it's a very ambiguous terminology, but the way he defined it is, or not defined it, but the way he recommended me go forward from that is, in order to practice and have good taste, you have to consume good content. And the elaboration that I kind of developed on top of that was, better understand what you like and why, understand what you don't like and why, and watch what other people like and why. And I know it sounds very like mechanical, constantly questioning and better studying you and everybody around you, but that's how you build taste. That's how you better understand it. And so when you're given an assignment and you have an idea of what your director likes, you have developed the taste. It happens instinctually or it happens cognitively when you're making your decisions. So consume good content and enjoy it, but also understand why you like it.
I want to add on to that. I think it's important to consume bad content as well, and let me explain why. There's this person I know. He was very much like, oh, I don't want to look at what other people are doing. I'm not going to browse Pinterest. I'm not going to browse Twitter, because I want to keep my mind fresh, right? And then what ends up happening is they create a design, and I'm like, that looks exactly the same as this character in, I don't know, League of Legends or something, like 1-to-1. And he was like, huh? And the thing is, like, what happens is you end up reinventing the wheel, right? Like, there's no need to do that. But the second reason why is You ever hear people say, oh, like this looks cliche, this looks generic, and the reason for that is because we've seen this again and again and again, and I think that's the reason why it's important to consume all sorts of content, good content, bad content, so you know what's generic, what's been done before, what can be built upon, what's considered kitschy, what's considered cringe, you know? I think to expand your palette in every single direction so you have a better grasp on, you know, the medium in general.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think one thing to note is you guys don't have to just consume art. You guys just experiencing life. You're automatically adding things into your brain. Traveling, eating different foods, learning new languages, trying different skills, all these things will be applicable to your designs. Some of the best artists that I've seen are people who don't even really have a background in art. They get into it in their 30s, and some of them are like just engineers or doctors, and they just try to make a jump and just switch. And they come with their ideas and their life experiences into their art, and it shows. So, cool.
Yeah, can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
I think a huge thing for me when I was in school, there was kind of like this light bulb moment. I think, especially being at an art school, everybody kind of looked at the same things, right? So everybody's work kind of looked the same, right? And I mean, I think it's cool to look at things you're inspired by and everything, but there was one friend that I had who just kind of like rejected that idea, and he was like looking at like fashion illustrations or just like abstract artwork and literally anything you could think of. He was looking at funny stickers that he'd find at the bookstore, or he was looking at book covers. It's literally anything. And it was very inspiring because I saw his mentality or like his view on art kind of change over time, and then his work ended up looking different. And that eventually latched on to me as well. And it was just like a big light bulb moment that you should look at other things, especially to those of you that are in school. Like look outside of school, look outside of animation, and look at everything. Everything can inspire you.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, don't just do what looks good, do what feels good, you know.
Yes, exactly. Managing bad, toxic work environments. So sometimes not everything's glamorous. Sometimes you can be put in poorly managed teams or a boss. So how do you guys navigate and deal with a toxic or poorly managed work environment?
This one's a
Everyone's
really
looking at me.
No, I'm sorry.
Chelsea.
Ian's like staring at me. He knows. He knows.
I mean, we've talked about this before,
Yeah.
and we've each kind of had our own unique experiences. I'll briefly go over mine. I'm not going to name specifics, but there was a production where everybody was great. It was the content itself that we were producing. And for my experience, I just needed to be prepared to walk away. And I know that's really hard to swallow, and like I empathize, especially if you have kids or you really need this job. And the thing that I can recommend, this is a hard situation. There's no like winners out of this. Do your best to strengthen yourself, whether it's a financial situation, a living situation. Just be willing to be able to step away. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I actually stepped away from my first job in animation. I was there for 5 months, and it was heartbreaking because, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna find work again. I don't know if I should leave. And I mean, I remember like we talked about it, and it was like I had exhausted everything that I could to get through the situation, and I walked away, and it was honestly the best decision ever because then I got DreamWorks after, and you really have to think about your own mental health, because if you stick it out too long, sometimes you're gonna get burned out or you're gonna suffer for it. So having those boundaries is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be like, you can only be taken advantage of if you let them too, right? So like you want to make sure, like Alan mentioned, just have your own value, and if you have options, then you can walk away anytime, right? And it's hard when you're just starting out and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like
I had
you
no
work
options.
so hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I had no options, and then LightBox happened. The first LightBox happened, and I got a table, and yeah, rest is history.
I'll also say, because I'm like familiar, I know what you're talking
You know,
about.
yeah, you know the situation.
I think it's important to have like a base of emotional support, right? Especially within the toxic environment in question, right? So it's like sometimes you feel gaslit, like you don't know if it's like actually toxic or something, but it's like you talk to some other people and they're like, oh, I've had the same experience with that one guy, you know? I don't want to talk about my experiences. I don't want to say anything I'm going to regret on camera. But yeah, that's one thing. I think also it's just like, have you guys seen that TV show Severance on Apple
Yeah.
Plus? Sometimes you just gotta turn your brain off at work. That's all I got.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think I've had too many like toxic work environments, but I did work at a studio where a lot of other people had a really toxic experience, right? And I don't know why I didn't like feel that, but I think just because like I was separating, you know, my like work with like, I wasn't emotionally attached to my work and this job. So I was just like kind of there chilling, and like I had good rapport with everybody. So it's like, I think it's good to be adaptable and to just like be a good person and chill, regardless of your situation around you. Because if you know who you are and what you're about, then if there's a lot of chaos around you, I think I feel pretty grounded, you know?
I also want to preface and say we're kind of discussing last ditch measures, but you know, try to do your best to communicate with your crew if you trust them, if you feel like it, you know, obviously not the person or the group that might be the toxic side of things to you, but do your best to find community amongst your profession and see, is it a factual thing or is it a miscommunication? Was just something fell down through the loops and through the cracks of the bureaucracy of everything, and someone slipped up. It might not be malicious, but if it is, then yeah.
Do you guys think it's okay to speak up?
Ooh.
Like
Call
how-
them out.
like-
I hate this place.
Like if you have a toxic boss,
You mean like HR?
do you
speaker?
say something?
I mean, we
That's
did.
scary, right?
Yo, that's spicy.
We
Now we're getting.
I
Very
haven't.
sorry.
I've been fortunate enough to not have any toxic work environments, so I don't have much to say. I just know that in the end, like, it's a whole spectrum, right? It's not going to just be black or white. There's going to be shades of gray in between, but you really do have to prioritize your own mental health, because in the end of the day, it is a job. And depending on how severe the situation is, I guess you can choose to walk away or put up with it, or I would say communication is the best, but I understand why sometimes if the toxic work environment is caused by your boss or your higher up, then it would be very difficult to talk about it, right? But I think in that regard, if you do have like coworkers who feel the same, it makes it easier, because then now you can all just like talk together as a team instead of just one person accusing another person.
Yeah, and then you can gang up on that one.
If they're in the wrong, then they deserved it.
If you are not in significant physical harm or even mental harm, just as long as you're safe and it's just sort of like the casual toxic environment, that 80% rule, maybe just crank it down. Maybe 70%.
Casual toxic.
Yeah, what was it? What's the casual percentage instead of 80%?
Casual percent.
Like 60?
Yeah.
60?
Yeah.
60?
60% toxic.
60%.
Just enough?
Yeah. If they're not treating you the way you should be treated, you shouldn't be doing it likewise.
Yeah, you're still a human, you know. You have feelings too.
Yeah.
Did you guys always have this mentality in mind? Or, because first starting off, at least for me, I've always felt like I had to be like a yes person, right? Like just, yes, I'm just gonna deal with it. I think a lot of artists tend to be people pleasers. Like we just want to create and impress people. Mm-hmm. So were you guys always this way, or was it like something that you had to build up the courage to?
No, I think we all like try to push ourselves in the beginning. I think that's very common, but you know, eventually you just have to kind of know your value, your worth, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, you want to avoid trying to be a people pleaser, because if you try to get that validation from other people, you're never going to be satisfied, and you're going to keep digging yourself into a deeper pit where you're going to try to give more of yourself away to get that approval from people when it should come from within, you know?
I think like when we talked earlier about problem solving, like that's why it's really important to understand what the problem is, so you're not delivering too much as well. Like people pleasing, sometimes it's like your own insecurity about what you're not sure of, like what's expected of you. So just, you know, have a better lay of the land so you can save yourself some
Yeah,
headache.
because my first job, I was constantly scared that I was like, are they going, if I don't like put 100%, are they going to regret hiring me? Or maybe it was a mistake that they hired me, you know, but, and then I did get like a small mental breakdown about that. I was just like, oh my God, what if I don't deliver this? And then they were like, you know what, we don't need you after all. But I would say they hired you for a reason, you know, don't insult their intelligence and for their reasonings for hiring you. So if they hired you, it's because they wanted you. So have confidence in yourself.
Thank you. Dealing with fears. What are some fears and challenges that get in the way of your creativity and productivity? Oh, we're getting dark.
I mean, there's a lot of,
It's a
I
lot.
think that's a constant thing, right? Like just
Every
being
day.
afraid of not being good enough, and like that's really gonna hurt your creativity, you know? Like when your brain is just fight or flight all the time, you're not really open enough to solving a lot of problems that you might be expected to solve.
Yeah, it's also not even just fears. I mean, I have a hard time focusing. I'm pretty positive I've got ADHD, and I gotta like lock in when I start work. I gotta have my headphones, my coffee. Like I gotta make a very good attempt to make sure that I don't get distracted.
I mean, the fears that I've had is, as a character designer working for studios, is what if I get an assignment that I don't know how to draw, right? That's the big thing. Like, I don't know how to draw that pose. I don't know how to draw that angle. But the best way to get over it is to just try it, look up references, and if you really need to, you have a team to work with. You can ask them for help. I've had my character design leads like save my ass so many times because I'm just like, I've tried for hours. I don't know how to do this angle. It's a weird angle, like this weird like for coming from the bottom angle, or like they're, you know, cartoons are funny. They get contorted in the most anatomical ways, but you have to make it work. So get somebody more experienced to come help you. That's what they're there for. And eventually you kind of, you build that experience and things get easier, and those things you're scared of drawing, like all you people hiding your hands behind the back, I see you, I've been there, you know, just get over the fear, draw more hands, and then it becomes more natural.
Yeah, beat that AI, man, beat it.
Yeah, prove those AI allegations wrong.
I think for me, it kind of goes along with that, but something that was really hard for me in the beginning is that my fear would become so big that it would like, I wouldn't communicate with people. And I remember talking to an old art director about like my experience working there, and he's like, honestly, like that's not like a new thing for me. He says a lot of new artists, like they'll just kind of like ghost and like kind of go off on their own and then show up with a bunch of things, and then it's like not really what they needed. And he said that that was like a really common experience for beginner artists, and it's something that I really had to get over because, you know, say like I'm given an assignment, like I really had to put that to practice, like push past the fear and say, you know, even though like I spent yesterday looking at a ton of references, gathering all the thing I needed for this assignment, maybe doing some sketches, but I'm still kind of confused on what to do. But then it's the next day, the next work day, and it's like, oh my gosh, like there's this fear. Oh my gosh, if I reach out now, it's not yesterday, right? When I got the assignment, is that gonna look bad on me or something like that? And that, like there is that fear there, but you know, over time I've practiced to just be as communicative as possible. If I ever feel the itch of fear to not communicate, I will just do it no matter what. And yeah, that's really helped out a lot, but it took a little bit for me to get used to doing that. It took a couple jobs for me, yeah.
Yes, please. I've been on the receiving end where I'll launch an artist and I like, hey, I just want to make sure you're set up for success. Here's some designs, here's the script, here's some inspirations. Is there anything else you need? And sometimes I'll have, like in the past, I've had artists just say, yeah, everything's great. And it's basically like near the very deadline, and they're like, actually, I'm a little confused on this part. And things would have just been so much better had the communication been very thorough at the very beginning. And I've been there. I know that you're scared to come across, again, you're scared and the fear is natural, but you're worried that they're going to perceive you in a very certain way. But at some point, you do have to recognize that that fear might be attached to pride. And you might have to set that pride at the door, because some of that pride is, I don't want to come across as weak. I don't want to come across as if I'm not understanding it at the very first gate. And also, when you're delivering or you want to experiment with ideas, you're scared to open up because you want to be the person who only has good ideas. I'm going to tell you right now, I've been in the industry for a decent amount of time. I have never met someone who is a master of good ideas. I have met masters of collaboration. Be a master collaborator, please.
Yeah, like whenever I work, I get an assignment, I ask a million questions, because I know that it's better to get all of that out in the beginning and knowing what you're doing in the beginning. Because if you wait until, and then you have like all these questions and you're like, oh, I don't want to bother them, right? I don't want to be annoying. And then you do your assignment, and then by the time you turn it in, they're just like, oh, we needed this instead, you did this wrong. And it's like, oh, I should have asked about that because that was something I was concerned about. My motto is always, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cures. Get it out in the beginning, and then you'll be able to do your assignment properly without having to go back and revise. Nobody likes, having to go back and being told like you did all this wrong, fix it, Wouldn't you rather like get all those questions out, all millions of them out, because it doesn't matter if you're bothering them, that's their job, Their lead or your boss, that's their job.
If I can just add one quick thing to that is, would you rather stress out or ask questions to your boss when things are easy, or when things are stressed out and it last minute?
Yeah, and then when they're like, oh, now you came to me with this and we have a deadline, right?
Wait, Gina, could you repeat that bar real quick? Can you repeat that one more time? What was it saying?
Oh, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cures?
Bars, man. That shit. Man, that shit crazy, man.
I also do want to say, I think a lot of this fear comes from you don't, like you said, you don't want to look incompetent, right? But again, when you're working on a big project, it's not just you, it's collaborative. You are working with, tens of other people to create something that's bigger than the sum of its parts, right? So it's very okay to lean on other people. You want to lend a helping hand to people when they need it, and vice versa. It all comes down to communication.
I think especially from the art director's point of view, for you think that they are judging you, but they're not even thinking about you. They have a bunch of other things to manage and worry about.
They're very busy.
Yeah,
very busy.
and you don't have to be afraid of what they're gonna think of you. They're just trying to get the job done and fix whatever the problem is. So it's better for you to come to them and let them know.
Actually, guaranteed they will like you more if you make their job easier.
Yeah,
and not mess up. Just talk to them.
Yeah, you want to be reliable. That's really important. Communicate and reliable. It's the last question. Learning from your mistakes. We've all made some big mistakes and small mistakes. How do you guys learn from your mistakes?
We don't make mistakes.
What is that?
Yeah, what am I talking about? Yeah, what am I saying?
Stole my line.
Overwatch panel, yeah. We're good.
I think for me, the biggest lesson I learned was right out of school. I just was network, and I was just talking to as many people as I could, and I was going to studios to visit and throwing my name out there and my work, and I didn't realize that I was throwing a portfolio out there that wasn't good enough, and it didn't matter how many people I talked to, that I was not going to get a job. So I actually did way better when I was like, you know what, I'm going to stop talking to everybody. I'm going to go hole myself in my room for a year and a half, 2 years. That's I think what it took. And just really make a good portfolio, make something that was applicable to the job. And at that point, jobs started coming to me. So I didn't even feel like I had to network anymore, as hard as I had been at least.
Actually, I think the starting point is to recognize that you made a mistake first, because some people don't realize, right?
Yeah.
People think that they'll continue making the same mistake because they haven't realized that they're doing something wrong, unless of course somebody tells them. And then there's always the reaction where they'll double down and get defensive, like, no, I know what I'm doing, you know.
It's hard. It's like you have pride
Yeah,
too. When you're out of school,
we're
you're
artists.
like, I'm
we're
ready
fragile.
to go.
We have
Yeah.
pride.
Yeah, my portfolio was not ready
Yeah,
to go.
I realized that too. After I finished school, I was just like, why is no one hiring me? And then you know, you take a good hard look at yourself and just be honest. If you're not up to it, like if your work is not up to professional standards, just be honest with yourself and then move on from there. You know, there's no point to keep making the same mistakes.
It's good to have a network of people around you too. I mean, like having friends that are honest with you and that can really look at your work and critique it honestly.
Yeah, another reason to not be a people pleaser.
Yes.
You guys just don't make mistakes.
I think I got one. I think mistakes in regards to like art making, right? I think you need to expect yourself to make mistakes. This is like we're joking around, but like you make so many mistakes on your way to like creating like, you know, a nice painting or something, or just like working on the job. And it's important to leave some room for your mistakes, right? Because if you expect it, then it's not like oh, I failed, but it's like I failed, but now I can get to the real thing. You know, that was just warm up, right? So that's like a general. I feel like that can be applied to a lot of different things. You know, leave room for failure.
Yeah, if you don't there's no such thing as a person who doesn't make mistakes. Like nobody's perfect. If you think you don't make mistakes, then you're lying to yourself.
No, what was it?
Alan's like, I'm perfect.
No. I've definitely made a lot of mistakes, but the reason why I'm having a little bit of issue is because I actively, in regards to art, I'm similar. I actively make mistakes, as many mistakes as I can make. And a lot of it comes from experimenting with things outside of my own box, things that I actively search out. And, you know, same thing with consuming content, same thing with producing artwork that, you know, doesn't speak to you, but, you know, you tried it, experimented it. I guess my advice as far as about mistakes is make sure you learn from other people's mistakes. Listen and genuinely take it to heart, and that way you don't make as many.
Yeah, let other people make the mistakes for you. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm also having a little bit of trouble with the question because a lot of what we talked about kind of like was like how I got over a lot of my mistakes was by communicating more, by you know, not being emotionally attached to my work, right? Because these were things that I kind of had more at the beginning, like where, you know, I didn't turn something in and it wasn't like great and I got a lot of notes, or it was late, or, you know, and those things happen. But I think, you know, for me, huge thing has been communication. Like it's really helped out a lot over time, because of all that fear, all the fears and stuff especially at the beginning, So yeah, I don't know. And when it comes to like art and creating, yeah, I think that was also a big thing for me in school, was that same friend I was talking about earlier. He was always like, man, I just want to make some bad art. Like, I want to make some really trash stuff.
Oh my God.
And
Gregory.
he was like I'd go to the, our figure drawing workshops, right? And
he's like, don't talk about that.
I go to the figure drawing workshops, and when you go to a figure drawing workshop, like everybody has amazing work, and it's all, you just really want to create some really great stuff, right? Because like, oh my gosh, the person next to me is drawing like a realistic hand. What? I can't do that. And then I would get to my friend's board, and it was just like scribbles, and I'm like, he's like experimenting with like pastels on cardboard or something like that, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. He's like, yeah, I'm just creating some bad art. So he got me in the practice of creating things bad, creating things bad intentionally, so that like when you're creating work for animation or something like that, then you just get to experiment and try new things and not really think about if you're going to fail or not, because that's going to happen. So yeah, just create stuff unapologetically.
Yeah, for every one good piece, there's 10,000 bad ones that came before that. Like, I like to keep a scribble sketchbook because I know we've all been there where you have a really nice new sketchbook and you don't know how to break into it because it's the fear of the blank page, right? You don't want to mess it up. You don't want any ugly illustrations or sketches in that book. But that's what a sketchbook is for. You're supposed to put all your ugly drawings into it so that when you do need to make something nice, you know, you've already gotten all the bad stuff out of the way. Plus, I find it freeing. Like, just you could just have like a ballpoint pen or like a old pencil or marker, and then just draw out your most raw ideas, because sometimes those ideas are your best ones, and they won't be bogged down by your fear of perfection. That's my biggest mistake was always being a perfectionist. I'm a recovering perfectionist, by the way. An overachiever. Yeah, I'm trying to fix that by just accepting everything I do, because everything you do, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just, everything has an essence of you, and that's the most important part.
There is one mistake that haunts me to this day that I've made, and it's not kind of is portfolio rated, but it's more experience related. Basically what it was I had been a storyboard artist for like a year and a half. Not a whole lot of experience, but I felt pretty confident. And I had a friend who was supervising directing a major project, and he asked for me to come on as a story artist, and I was like, that's awesome, but I also know you're looking for a director. Would I be an option? And it was the most embarrassing thing where he had to politely tell me that I was not ready. And I have since learned from that mistake. And one of the lessons that I've took away was be humble and pose it as a question. Trust someone that you know is in the position or even higher that you want to be, and ask them, hey, am I ready, or what do you think I could do to be ready? And they'll tell you if you're ready. But don't just assume because you've had a really good, powerful first few years in the industry. Let the industry tell you if you're ready.
Yeah, but have the confidence to shoot your shot, though, but in a humble way.
I think that could be phrased as, hey, I really want to do this job. Do you think I'm ready, or if not, how far? Mm-hmm. I think that's a great way to phrase it, because there's a sense of humility there, and you're not assuming.
And you're also showing that you have initiative to move up if you want to.
Yeah, but it still haunts me, even though I'm still friends with him, and we have dinner. And
no, that's embarrassing.
It's very, isn't it? I'm sharing that with you. Yeah.
But then there's also the people who have like 10 plus years of experience who are like, you think they're godly, when they're like, no, I can't possibly, Chelsea. They're just like, they don't have the confidence. It's like, no, you are good enough, Yeah. Just be confident, but be humble. It's a balancing act.
And with that is how you reach Grandmasters in Overwatch. Thank you guys, everybody. We do have a couple of minutes for Q&A. Yes, first person over there. Let me give you this mic real quick. Woo!
I guess Chelsea's not answering anything.
Share mic.
My man, how you doing?
How are you? Good.
I actually just had a question. Is it Chelsea or for Chelsea? I was wondering if you could expand on something that you just touched on briefly in the last question. You said you spent like a year and a half, 2 years going back into your hole and kind of like recreating your portfolio.
Yeah.
What did your portfolio look like before that, and then how did it look like coming out of that shell? Like, because I'm going through a similar thing right now. Where I'm not a very type A person. When I make art, it's very like messy and maybe beautiful, but messy for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find a way to structure it properly. And I'm wondering if you could touch on that at all.
Yeah, what I did is I went to Cal State Long Beach, so I went to a school that was specializing in illustration, and I really wanted to get into animation, and I had no idea what kind of portfolio that entailed. I didn't even know what the job was. I just knew I wanted to work, in these incredible stories and do something art related. I started looking at people that were doing what I wanted to do, and I looked at their portfolios and I emulated them. I didn't copy them, but I emulated. So whatever they had in their portfolio, if it was a turnaround or like a layout or like props, or I would make up my own story and just to do that exact same like type of page on my website or whatever. And it was very almost jarring, because my portfolio was an illustration portfolio, and I actually got a lot of editorial illustration work out of school. I did like stuff for like Playboy and random like like big names, but just stuff I didn't really want to do. But it was nice having the ability to like look at people that were doing what I wanted to do and just emulate their portfolios, I guess.
More so like the structure of the portfolio,
The
right?
structure, that was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I want to say that messy is not much particularly a bad thing.
Messy's
just,
not.
Yeah,
no.
just show that you can make a clean, finished piece, but you can include the messy like sketches that go with it. Because I was actually told that my portfolio is too clean. Like they wanted to see more raw sketches, you know. So show that you could do both. Show that you have the ideation, but you can also like bang out a clean piece as well.
It depends on what you want to get into also. Like
Yeah,
if you're doing characters like or environment or whatever, or if you're specializing in color or, you know, stuff like that. Like if you're doing color, you want to do like color keys and stuff like that. So it's fine to be messy, but you need to be clear in your intention.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of people think a portfolio is like a checklist. You talk to recruiters and they always tell you like you gotta have this, you gotta have this, have this. But a lot of times like, what if you're not strong at those things you're including in your portfolio? That's not gonna work, right? I think a better way to approach it is to like, it's problem solving that we talked about before, like understand what the job is. So whatever you're putting in, always have in mind like, how would this be used in a work environment, right? Like why are you including this in your portfolio? Don't just think of it as like, I'm just showing off. You know, like that's not a good idea because you could be like including stuff that's not relevant to the job that you're applying for. So just, you know, learn as much as you can about whatever production you're trying to get into.
Yeah, like character design, you don't need to include still life paintings. Like it's nice to show that you can, but in the actual portfolio, I would say for portfolio structuring, you should probably create different pages for different positions. So if you have story, you know, your storyboards, character, keep it relevant to what you're applying for.
Okay. All right. I got this person here.
Hi, hello. Great talk. I really, really enjoyed it, and I find that questions are kind of like more of a like way to find a deeper understanding. So I don't mean this in like a. Oh, sorry. I don't mean this in like a. I want to like I didn't know enough, but like I want to know more. I love this one. In terms of like artistic expression and identity. And I know you guys were talking about experimentations, like learning from other people and not getting like too emotionally attached. Do you find like when trying to express your authentic self, or at least like what you like and what your interests are, do you find like going like full force with it, or do you have to like, do you find they have to dampen certain aspects of yourself in order for certain like say personal projects, and also like how to incorporate certain personal flair into projects where like maybe the vision is completely different from what you're usually working on? Oh, that makes sense.
I think sometimes people are applying for jobs that is like not a good fit for them. And I know it's hard in the beginning when you're like looking for a job and you're just thinking, oh, I'll do anything. But if you have a very strong sense of what you want to do, I think it might be better to like trying to find a job that fits that instead of, you know, applying to jobs. And if you feel like maybe you're more of a fine artist, and like the reality of like industry work is they're creating a product and they only need a certain thing, and you know, different studios, different clients, they're looking for different things. I don't know if that's like where you're
I would say try to find a way to put a piece of yourself into what you do regardless of what you're doing. So like, I know people are very protective of their styles, but I would say a good way to go about it, if you want to be a professional where you're not going to just be able to do one style, you have to adapt to many styles, is to break out of your comfort zone, try other styles, and it's honestly going to be natural like handwriting. You're not going to actively have to like think about how to incorporate your style. It's going to come out naturally as you do it. So just try out different styles, and then going into the portfolio thing as well, show that you can do multiple styles, because the thing I see a lot is that people tend to have kind of stagnant portfolios where they'll only have one style, and you know, studios or companies need to know that you can adapt to their product.
Yeah, and I don't know if you were talking in the context of like a portfolio, but I'm gonna go assuming that. So I think for me personally, when I create my personal projects, like I really want to express something that I'm really passionate about, right? So I think for me, personal projects are the time to to really express that or dig deep into yourself and tell a story that you really want to tell. Like, I think one of my favorite projects that I did was my main portfolio project, and it's just like I consider it my passion project because it's kind of like about how I grew up as a child, but it won't necessarily come off that like as that when you see it. But I definitely pulled into like a lot of my experience growing up, skating and stuff like that. So, I think that if you're developing a portfolio, like people will tell you to create certain things, but yeah, you want to hit like an industry standard, right, in your portfolio, but the type of thing that you're telling, you want to feel passionate about it, or you want to like express yourself in that. I think it's really good to inject like your passion into everything that you do, especially when you're not working at a studio and you're doing your own personal work. Definitely I think that's something that I really kind of champion forward is like really do what you love, right? Really create things that you really want to create. Yeah.
If I can jump, so everything they have said has been wonderful. I do want to offer a slightly counter suggestion, particularly if you're a new artist. If you're getting your first job, second, or whatever, and it is so not your style, it doesn't call to you the way you would normally draw or with the stuff that you like to watch. I would say take it as an opportunity to take a break from what you think your style is, so that when you come back, whether it's on a personal project or your job has been finished, you can come back to what you like. But because you've had some time to think about it, you can better like ascertain exactly what is my style. Because I feel like leaving the ambiguity of, I kind of like doing this, I kind of like doing that, that can get you into trouble the longer you go in your career. So make sure you fully understand, like I've mentioned it before, and I don't want to harp on it too much, but thoroughly understand what you like and don't like and why. And make sure, you mentioned that a lot of it comes out instinctually, and that is true, but try to see how much of it doesn't have to be instinctual.
Okay, production people, is it okay if we have 2 more questions? Is that all right? Thank you, appreciate you guys. Woo! Okay, we have 2 more questions.
So concerning independent work, like my college doesn't have much in the way of storyboarding, so I usually try and study on my own time. I've been having trouble outside of balancing school work and your own self-study. How do you hold yourself accountable to finish things you start?
Don't worry about finishing. Worry about really getting that pencil mileage and really experimenting. Because I don't want to assume, but are you kind of early on in your training? Oh yeah. You're early innings. It's definitely great to finish things, but when it comes to storyboarding, what I really benefited a lot was taking on a challenge. I saw this really cool action sequence. Can I emulate it? And I'll start with thumbnails. I'll do it in Storyboard Pro, and then my passion for it might fizzle out, and that's okay. As long as I have something else I jump onto. Maybe the next one is, I want to do a very dramatic conversation between 2 people at a bar. And I'll start to do the same thing. And you want to build that experience, and you don't want to discourage yourself from building as many of these experiences because you feel bad you didn't finish the last one. Because storyboard, it's all about getting that practice under your belt and being fast, and you only get that from practice. And another suggestion I would have is experiment, and then identify which ones did you finish. Because the ones you finished, it might be because you really call to that. So that's my suggestion, yeah.
You can also try to find a way to do it during downtime where you're if you're watching a movie, you notice a sequence that you like, and you're like, oh, that's cool. You can try to take notes on it right away, so you're doing 2 things at once. You're relaxing and watching a movie, but you're also still, putting aside some time for your personal storyboarding.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Ren, I have probably 11 minutes worth of animatics that have never seen the light of day, and I've done them in between jobs. And even though I don't really have an intention to post those or share it, I still benefit so much from that experience, and I carry that experience into my job. So yeah.
I want to add that if you're having trouble finishing work or doing work, you need to figure out why that's happening first, because the resistance can be maybe it's too hard, Or what if it's too boring, right? These are two separate problems, like two very different problems and you're gonna need different solutions for that, right? So you need to know that first, because I don't think there's an answer that will like work for everybody's situation. Because if it is too hard, then you might have to like break it down into smaller steps. Maybe you don't have the skill to tackle whatever it is you're trying to finish. But if it's too easy, then you need to challenge yourself, right? So that's like, just think about like why you're having trouble.
Or maybe your expectation is too high,
Yeah.
right? So maybe maybe your goal is to have some finished thing. I know that around like junior, senior year, everybody's looking to create a portfolio so that they can show it to studios by the end, right? So it's like, that can be very limiting, right? It's like, oh, I have to create a project. I have to create something so that I can like really perform. But I think it's really good to realize that like you were saying, just like create things, right? And it's like you don't have to have an end product. You'll get that eventually. Like, just know that that'll come. But right now is your time to try things, right? And just do that unapologetically, right? I know everybody around you is probably like, oh, I'm working on this project. I'm trying to finish my portfolio, so I can get a job. It's like, a lot of people don't get a job after their first year of college, or after they graduated their first year out, right? So it's like, just know that. And like, I know there could be these high expectations to get a job right outside of school or even before you leave, right? But it's like, you're still really early on, right? So just try things. That's like really important at this stage, right?
You have so much time in college and you don't realize it until you're out.
Honestly, also, like, you think like it's just you're gonna finish school and then you're done learning. No, you're gonna keep learning as you work as well. I don't think any artist out there is like, oh, I'm a master of everything. I've learned everything I can. I think all artists are always constantly learning too.
So just make sure you don't typecast yourself in the very beginning. I early on was well known for sci-fi action stuff. And then when I was at Netflix, I was also then known for being really good at sex orgy scenes. So just be flexible and be willing to tackle many different tones. And
whoa.
Yeah. It was tasteful.
Okay, we have one last question. This is going to be a very important topic to end off on. This gentleman right here has a question for you.
Thank you very much for your time. I have one question about AI. What do you think about AI? I have friends in different companies. Some companies told them not to use AI, no AI. Other company decided to use more AI and they stopped hiring artists. And I see new AI every week. So do you have any suggestion for us how to deal with it or not to deal with it, or are you planning, in general, how do you deal with it?
This is spicy. This is going to be, let's just try to keep it short.
It's a spicy question.
I don't think we are going to be able to decide how that's going to play out. Obviously, I don't think any of us here likes that it's happening.
It's very hard to enact systemic change on an individual basis. I think it's important to understand what it will do, what it can do, and what it can't do. And I feel like there's a lot of like fear mongering. I don't know if that's the right word, kind of flying around. Look, I think what AI can replace is a lot of like, I don't have a better term for this, but like grunt work, right? That's better than what I was gonna say. A lot of grunt work. And the unfortunate reality is that for a lot of people, myself included, this grunt work, whether it's like, painting, inventory icons or like item icons in a video game, or, just like small miscellaneous things, that's our first step into the industry. And I think with the advent of AI, if it's widely adopted, it's gonna take all of that out, And then there's like a higher strata of more creatively demanding jobs that won't be taken out, because AI can't create new things. You know, that's kind of the whole point of machine learning, is that you dump a lot of images that already exist and then you create something out of that, right? And so if you want something generic, you're going to get something generic easily from AI. And here's the thing, a lot of people don't know, a lot of people already don't know what makes an interesting image interesting. Much less AI, right? Because sometimes you'll find something crazy, like, I don't know. You ever seen like those meme images of like, you know, like a AI generation of like, I don't know, like, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but it's like funny, but it's like AI doesn't know why it's funny. The AI doesn't know that it's funny, but someone made that and they were like, this is funny. So you're still gonna need that human touch at the end of the day. And I think it's important to tap into that side beyond just like the technical aspects of painting and drawing.
Yeah, your taste, your creativity is going to be more important than ever.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this for a while. And I guess the way I could answer that question is, number one, just like what's been echoed already, as much as I love this creative industry, so much of the decisions about our industry are not creative ones. So, like has already been mentioned, we'll just have to play it by ear. But I think what is actionable is, number one, we need to be diligent, tracking all the happenings with the legalities. I hope that there's going to be a lot of laws that are protective of artists that pass through. I'm also doing my best to stay on top of the technology because there's a lot of information and a lot of misinformation. So we just have to do our best to track it, whether it becomes a tool or if it becomes an exploitation machine. I'm not sure, but we just need to be diligent as a community. The other actionable thing that I would recommend is to focus on your craft from a very first principles point of view. And what I mean by that is get to the point where foundational stuff is instinctual. So as a story artist, perspective, it doesn't hold me back. Sequencing and achieving emotional points, that becomes instinctual. I know how the mechanics work. And that frees me up to be an artist. Because what really makes us artists is our own human lived experiences that we employ into our work. I used this example with the crew a little while ago, and I was working on a trailer for TGC. It was their announcement to the Switch trailer. And there's a scene where I was boarding, and it was a young child on a palanquin, and there's these beautiful mantas that are swooping over the sky. And it was my job to storyboard that. And the first thing I did was I stepped away from my desk, I sat on my couch, pretend and imagine that I was that child, because we've all been children. And I imagined these beautiful creatures overhead, and I instinctually raised my hand. I didn't even think about it. And that was where I was informed by my own imagination, my own experiences, and I put that to page, and that's what's on the trailer now. And that's where we separate from this machine learning, large language model tech. It's our own individual perspectives that we bring to the table. So master your craft and bring that to the craft.
I was thinking about this the other day of like, when you see bad AI, like why is it bad? And why does it stand out so much? And I feel like as humans, when we make mistakes, other people relate to it, right? But when AI makes mistake, nobody relates to that. And you notice it right away, right? And I think it's okay that as artists, as humans, it's okay to make mistakes because that's what's relatable to people. Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. Mistakes we relate to.
Because they didn't learn how to create art the way we learned it.
Yeah.
Flaws.
Yeah.
Imperfections.
It's kind of like when you watch a bad movie but you love it and you want to watch the behind the scenes and learn why the mistakes were done, right?
Have you guys seen that anime movie Look Back? So at the end of the movie, I don't know if they showed that in like your theaters, but in my theater, they included a interview with the director of the movie. And one thing that he said stylistically that he really wanted to push for in Look Back is, you know how like as an artist you do like a lot of like under drawings to like, you know, like you're drawing through the figure because you want to make sure that it's structurally sound. AI doesn't do any of that, and he wanted a lot of the drawings in the movie to retain some of that scratchy quality that you get when you don't erase those under drawings properly. And you know, like you said, it's something that humans can relate to, because it's like, that's how I draw. That's the kind of mistakes that I would make.
Yeah, also like human experiences that we can all relate to. Like you can tell when AI like writes a story, it's just weird. It's just uncanny, you know, like that doesn't make any sense, because even if it's a badly written story, at least you know what their intentions were. But with AI, it's just like they just kind of, you put in a bunch of stuff and it just spat out like whatever. And on the surface, it may seem like, okay, that makes sense like grammatically, but then does the heart of the story make sense? No, usually not. So I would say, as long as you can't replace that part, that human element, like that's the most important part of the art to me.
Just keep creating, guys. You guys have nothing to worry about. And with that, thank you everybody for coming through. Thank you to the production staff. Thank you to the homegirl over there. Yes, sir. And the resolution art. Thank you everybody for coming through.
Thank you, boys.
Thank you very much. Thank you.